Happy Holy Week. Happy Palm Sunday. This is the last Sunday of our Lenten experience. Lent ends this coming Thursday as we go into the Sacred Triduum. On the very first day of the Lenten season, on Ash Wednesday, we distributed ashes and we set a line. Does anyone remember what that line was? Okay, 4 of you remember. It was, remember that you are dust, and unto dust you shall return. Lent is a unique thing because it doesn't start on a Sunday, and it doesn't end on a Sunday. This year it obviously started on a Wednesday. This year it happens to end on a Thursday. But it never starts or finishes on a Sunday. Something unique about it. On the first Sunday that we did have the Lenten season, though, we heard from the book of Genesis. And we heard all the way from the beginning things that were pointing towards what was going to happen today. And so at the very beginning, we see God creates a man. He names him Adam. And his job really is to be the first Christ. His job is to redeem the land. He tills the land. His job then is to redeem his wife, to lead her. Right? His job really was to be the first of the Christ. He obviously fails at that, and sin enters the world. How does God make Adam? Does anyone remember? From dust, he makes him out of the earth, right? He gathers up the stuff of the earth to make this lifeless body. In the very beginning of the reading that we heard that first weekend, it says that he forms man out of the clay of the ground and blew into his nostrils the breath of life. So the man became a living being. We see out of the earth that Adam comes. God gives the life, but he gets the body from the earth. This lifeless person is just laying there until God does something. When we think of the two most important things, the two most important feast days that we celebrate, the one where all the people that come, they don't normally come, what are those two feast days? Christmas and Easter, very good. And when we think of both of those, right, both of those also come out of the earth. One starts in a cave and one ends in a grave. And so we see at the very beginning that Jesus begins and finishes subterranean, under the earth. And so we see very clearly there. Adam lays there lifeless, and God, it says, blows into his nostrils the breath of life. We see in the gospel that we read today, at the very last thing that Jesus does, he breathes his last, and it says today that he hands over his spirit. So we see breath and blowing as something very important. Adam's lifeless body is there until God breathes something new into him. Jesus finishes by breathing his last. Adam and Eve start sin where? Where were they? In a garden. John's gospel actually tells us that after Jesus is taken down from the cross, he's laid in a tomb in a what? A garden. Very good. He's laid in a tomb in a garden. So where death and re-life happens is always in a garden. Plants come and they die and they have to be resurrected. Sin enters the world in a garden, and Jesus redeems all of the world being redeemed in a garden. Adam and Eve sin, and they eventually have offspring, and those offspring are also sinners, and there's competition amongst them, and one kills the other. Cain, then, who is the murderer, gets sent off to the east to be redeemed. When King David eventually enters into Jerusalem, he comes actually from the east. When Jesus enters, he enters the same exact way as King David does from the east. And if you ever get to go to the Holy Land, there's an entrance right there, and there's all these tombs, and the closer they are to the door, the more expensive they are to be buried there. They ultimately want to be standing as close as possible so that when God fulfills his promise of resurrecting the dead, they will stand up and be facing the east. If you think of our cemetery, actually, all the bodies are actually buried so that if they were to stand up, they'd be facing the east. They'd be facing the rising sun. Until the Second Vatican Council, you actually couldn't say Mass after noon. So all the Masses would have been said with the sun still rising. Today we're obviously blessed that we're going to say Mass also facing the rising sun, facing the east. Adam and Eve, they begin fresh without sin, and there's something new. They're naked, and they're unashamed. Right? They get some period of time where they're just out and about, and they get what we might call naked time. But they eventually enter sin, and they have to be clothed because of that. It's after they sin they recognize the shame that they have. Now, in all of our stations, Jesus is always covered with a loincloth. That's something that we do artistically to avoid scandal. Jesus would have not been crucified with anything covering any section of his body. The Romans actually would have liked that he would be even more embarrassed dying like that. Jesus returns to a shameless way and dies on the cross, completely bearing everything for you and I. Why? At the beginning, in the book of Genesis, when Adam and Eve bring death into the world, everything begins to decay. And it's with Jesus' death and therefore his resurrection that we are promised everlasting life. And we get to experience the resurrection in a whole new way. He makes all things new. As we begin this Holy Week, and as we go into the most sacred time of the year, the 3 holiest days of the year, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Saturday, God wants to make all things new again. You and I who continue to turn to sin, and we become filled with shame because of it, God wants to make all things new again. You and I who have family drama and might wish that a family member not show up for Easter dinner, God wants to make all things new again. You and I who might struggle to raise our eyes or call something out because we know of our own past, Jesus desires to make all things new again. Let the Lord take away the shame. Let the Lord refresh us and renew us. Let us do so without shame in our hearts. Let us know that God has a plan in mind for us. The Lord wants to make all things new. He wants to make you new this weekend too.